In 1968, a scientist built a perfect world for mice. Unlimited food, unlimited water, no predators, no disease, zero stress, everything a mouse could ever need, forever. 4 years later, every single one of them was dead. This wasn't a horror movie. It was a real scientific experiment. And what happened inside that box may be the most disturbing prediction ever made about what happens to a species that gets everything it wants. Here's the full story. The scientist was John Calhoun. He called his experiment Universe 25. It was a giant enclosure specifically designed for mice. Inside, there was unlimited food, unlimited water, unlimited nesting material. No predators could get in. No disease was introduced. Temperature was perfectly controlled. Calhoun had built, as close as physically possible, a literal utopia. He placed 8 mice inside, 4 males, 4 females. For the first few months, everything went exactly as expected. The population exploded. Every 55 days, the number of mice doubled. More mice were born, more nests were built, the colony thrived. At its peak, over 2,200 mice were living inside this enclosure. But something strange started happening long before that peak was reached. Even though there was infinite space for food and water, there wasn't infinite social space. Mice are deeply territorial, deeply social creatures. And as the population kept climbing, something inside their social structure began to break. Males who couldn't establish their own territory and couldn't compete for status began to withdraw. They stopped defending anything. They stopped fighting. They just existed. Calhoun called this group the beautiful ones. Physically, they were flawless. No scars from fighting, no signs of struggle. But they did almost nothing except eat, sleep, and groom themselves. They stopped trying to mate entirely. They had no interest in status, no interest in reproduction, no interest in anything resembling normal mouse behavior. They simply withdrew from society completely. At the same time, a different group of males became hyper-aggressive. With no clear territory to defend, and too many competing males in too small a space, violence exploded. Unprovoked attacks became common. Males attacked females. Adults attacked infants. Mice began killing, and, in some documented cases, eating their own young. Female mice, meanwhile, became increasingly withdrawn and aggressive themselves. Many stopped nesting properly. Some abandoned their young mid-litter. Others attacked any mouse, including their own offspring, that came too close. The entire social fabric of the colony was collapsing, and it was collapsing specifically because of overcrowding, not because of any lack of resources. This is the part that made Calhoun's experiment famous and disturbing. Physically, these mice had everything. But socially, they had nothing left to organize around. No stable roles. No stable relationships. No sense of purpose within the group. And the result wasn't peace. It was chaos, apathy, and eventually, extinction. By day 600, birth rates had dropped to 0. Not because mice couldn't physically reproduce anymore, but because almost none of them were even trying. The population, which had once exploded to over 2,200, began a slow and permanent decline. Even after Calhoun removed some mice to give the survivors more space, the colony never recovered. The behavioral patterns had already become permanent. Within a few more years, every mouse in Universe 25 was dead. The perfect utopia had killed itself from the inside, without a single external threat. Calhoun called this phenomenon the behavioral sink. A point where a population becomes so overcrowded that normal social behavior completely breaks down and never recovers, even if the crowding is later reduced. Now here's why this experiment has fascinated and disturbed scientists for over 50 years. Calhoun didn't just see this as a mouse problem. He believed he was watching a preview of something that could happen to any dense social species, including us. Think about what happened inside Universe 25. Physical needs, fully met. Social structure, completely overwhelmed. And the result was a population divided into 2 extremes. One group that became withdrawn, apathetic, and completely checked out of society. Another group that became aggressive, erratic, and destructive. Sound familiar? To be clear, humans are not mice. Our societies are vastly more complex, and we have things mice never will. Language, culture, the ability to consciously restructure how we live. Calhoun's experiment doesn't prove humans are doomed to repeat this, but it does raise an uncomfortable question that researchers still debate today. What happens to social creatures when population density rises faster than their social structures can adapt? Some researchers point to modern cities as a partial, imperfect parallel, not because cities are overcrowded in the way Calhoun's box was, but because of something more specific: a rise in social isolation despite physical proximity. You can live in a building with 500 other people and know almost none of them. You can be surrounded by more humans than at any point in history and still feel completely alone. Some psychologists have pointed to Calhoun's beautiful ones, mice that were physically fine but socially withdrawn, as an eerie, if imperfect metaphor for a specific kind of modern disengagement. People who are technically thriving by every visible metric, but who have quietly opted out of ambition, connection, or participation in their community. Other researchers push back hard on this comparison, and for good reason. Mice in a sealed box with zero ability to leave, innovate, or restructure their environment are not a clean model for human societies, which constantly adapt, invent new social structures, and aren't limited to fixed territory the way Calhoun's mice were. Universe 25 is a warning about what happens when a species has no way to adapt its social organization to rising density. It is not a documented prophecy about human cities. Still, the core question Calhoun raised has outlived the controversy around his conclusions. Physical needs and social needs are not the same thing. You can solve one completely and still watch the other collapse. So what actually made the difference between the mice that thrived early on and the ones that fell apart later? It wasn't food. It wasn't space to move around in. It was role, status, purpose, a sense of belonging within the structure of the group. When that broke down, nothing else mattered, no matter how comfortable the environment was. That's the real, lasting takeaway from Universe 25. A species can have every physical need satisfied and still collapse if its social needs go unmet. Comfort was never the finish line. Connection was. If you want more deep dives into the strangest experiments in psychology and what they reveal about human behavior, subscribe. Every video on this channel breaks down another piece of the science behind why we do what we do.